Hare We just need to turn the master volume down if someone has a control board there.
It's there under the TV, I think.
It's
And behind.
just the master volume needs to go down. It's a problem.
Maybe we can move a little bit.
Yeah, it will be done. That's fine. I think phone is there next to that.
That's why I moved so far away.
As soon as you moved, it stopped. So it must have-
I really thought something from outside is happening.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to tell you.
Could you please continue now?
Sing.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Is to move that speaker away from the microphone. There's too much feedback. Maybe on the other side of the microphone.
Maybe you can see this.
Is this also?
Is that a speaker?
It's not a speaker. Sounds like it's a fake. Hear it? I know.
Right.
Krishna
Got it.
Why'd you stop? Keep singing. One more. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Nobody hit that screen because it would crash.
Now it's Texas size.
Is everybody able to see? Good, negative. Anybody can't see? Everyone can see. Great. Let's do the garland thing and then we'll go on. Come on. Get it over with. Hurry up, hurry up. Get it over with. All right. So, those of you that were with us yesterday evening will recall what the tick is that I committed to speak about this evening. There was... You got a signal going with somebody over here. Is everything all right?
I just want to record, Maharaj. That's what I.
Okay, everything's okay.
Okay.
Everything's okay. We can go forward now. Okay. So, do I have everybody's attention? That would be nice. A topic came up during the discussion yesterday about, can't remember exactly how it surfaced, but
Yeah, the question is how always remembering Krishna.
always remembering Krishna.
Then if I forget about the family,
Ah,
Not to forget Krishna.
I mean,
yeah. So thank you. Our topic yesterday, hello? Turn your cell phones off if you would. Somebody's, I'll start again. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our evening program. The Tuesday evening, pretty good for a Tuesday evening in a cold. But, count your blessings, because imagine what it's like in Toronto. Let me, a little sharing. In Toronto, they had record-breaking cold. 11 degrees colder than ever in the history of recorded temperature taking in Toronto. 11 degrees Celsius. It was colder in Toronto than the North Pole. And they had just been visited by Sheshika Prabhu. And they made this goal that they were going to distribute some number, and I think the number was 100 Srimad Bhagavatam sets, not to the congregation, making an appeal who would like to sponsor a Bhagavatam set, but door to door. Hard ball, but freezing cold. So there were 50 teams of devotees going door to door in colder than North Pole weather, selling sets of Srimad Bhagavatam, and they met their goal. Some kind of technology, I don't know what it is. I think it's WhatsApp, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure that was it. And
All the kids, there is a...
we have good news. There's another place where you can have your children talk all they like. And it's very close by, and it's warm. And it's not right in the middle of the floor where everybody else is, too. That's another nice thing. I'll try again. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, they were, as they were getting inside a place that was, not freezing, somebody let them in the house, apartment or whatever. They, as a Bhagavatam set was sold, they sent a WhatsApp to the group, and then we reached 26, let's go for 27, and hey, 27. So their 50 groups were knowing what each of the other groups were doing as they were going along and feeding off of each other's enthusiasm. And, they already had a Bhagavatam set, they wanted a Chaitanya Charitamrita set, or whatever. Well, everybody. So, Kirtans are great if everybody, the classes are not for children. Okay. So yesterday evening, there was the main topic was three things. The scriptural foundation for all of our rules and regulations, or vidhis and nishedas of bhakti. Always remember Krishna. I'll never forget Krishna. And so we gave the definition of the topic, and then why is it important, and then how to do it. And so the question and answer session, there's all this emphasis on remembering Krishna. What about our family members and our children and persons that are very dear to us? Or does that mean to remember Krishna, we forget those people and just remember Krishna and cholo, see you guys later? No, it means you see those persons in relation to Krishna, in their relationship with Krishna, or Krishna being at the center of a soul-to-soul relation. And that soul-to-soul relation obviously gets eclipsed or blocked by identification of what we're not, by identification according to the upadhi. I'm the mother, I'm the father, I'm the child, this is my sister, that's my brother, that's my uncle, and all of those things that we're not, because they're, now you see it, now you don't, they're temporary, and the soul is eternal, and the relation with Krishna is eternal. So to see the soul-to-soul relation with Krishna at the center, that's the target. That's the Always Remember Krishna program. So I said, interestingly, I spoke exactly on this very topic during this past weekend, during this past weekend. So I'd like to do that this evening. And the launching place is Queen Kunti. And that thing across the top, that's one of the last lines of one of her verses. She's requesting that, like the Ganga flows always down towards the ocean, that my mind always flows towards you. And okay, here we go. Anyabilasha Shunyam. We were discussing this verse from, does anybody recognize the verse? The verse is the one verse out of the entire Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami, our Nectar of Devotion, that the whole book rests upon. So it's really foundational verse. And the first part is exclusive, and then the second part is inclusive. By that I mean, a good definition of something says what it is, it also says what it isn't. When Prabhupada came to America, he didn't come with mridanga, he brought kartals and deities. So some devotees were going back to India, and he told them to get a mridanga. So supposing you don't know what a mridanga is, you say what it is, and you say what it isn't. So it's really clear what you know, and you can go to this shop, don't go to that shop, because they make good ones over here and they don't make good ones over there. But it's a drum, and it's a drum that has two heads, but the two heads are not like this. It's a bongo drum. It's two heads that are like this, but they're not equal size. One side is large and the other side is small. But there's some that are made of wood and some that are made of metal, but I want one that's made of clay. And et cetera, et cetera. Say what it is and what it isn't. This one has a deep sound, that one has a very high sound. I like that. So you say a good definition, a clear definition is both inclusive and exclusive. That's just a premise of logic. So this verse is a definition of bhakti, and bhakti is uttam bhakti, because bhakti is pure. And there's things that bhakti isn't. That's the first two. Jnana karma dinavritam, where your abhilash, your desires, are shunya. Any other desire than bhakti is shunya, specifically jnana and karma. Anavritam, it's eliminated. So that's what it isn't. What is it? And then anukulyena Krishna anushilana. Krishna anushilana. So we were discussing this at length, and not this weekend, the previous. So this is a Jiva Goswami lesson. This is 201, we'll come back down to 101. 201 is, he defines the words. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but he says, as with a verb, to know the meaning of a verb, you have to go to the dhatu. So this shilanam, dhatu is shil. And shil has two parts, that which is inactive and that which is active. The active part has different parts. The body, the mind, and emotion. Those are active elements. That's not who we really are. The body, the mind, and the emotions is not who we really are. And then there's a non-active element, which is absorption in. Shil has that meaning. So shilanam is activity on those three platforms, the body, the mind, and emotion, with deep absorption in something. And the deep absorption is Krishna. And Krishna means, a shorter explanation than his full explanation, it means Krishna. It means the expansions of Krishna. It means those who are in relation to Krishna. And he specifically says, for example, in Rupa Goswami's writings, as Jiva Goswami, there are 64 items of bhakti. This is 201. We'll come back down to 101 shortly. There are 64 items. The first of them is Guru Padashraya. That's an item of bhakti because Guru is in relation to Krishna. So Krishna, Krishna's expansions, absorption in Krishna, Krishna's expansions, and those in relation to Krishna, his devotees, the souls that are eternally related with Krishna. This word anu means continuous. So continuous absorption in activities in relation to Krishna and his expansions in Krishna's devotees. Then comes what Jiva Goswami says is the principal characteristic of the entire definition, which is this anukul. Again, I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but I know what Jiva Goswami says. When you add anukulyena, it takes on the instrumental case, which means it's imperative. You can't do without it. It's essential. It's primary. It's fundamental. These other characteristics are adjectives describing the fundamental primary thing. Anushilana is favorable or pleasing for the purpose of pleasing Krishna. So the contrast is what we find in Nectar Devotion. Kamsa, he was very Krishna conscious, but he wasn't a devotee because there was no anukul. wasn't favorable. Shishupal, he was absorbed from the time he was born. He was absorbed in Krishna. There's this description. It's a nice description, in short. I think it's Gopal Champu. Shishupal was related to Krishna. I can't exactly how, but a family relation. And Krishna was born just some few days before Shishupal was born. So when Shishupal was born, many relatives and local people came to see the newborn child and offer their kind words to the parents, etc. And in the course of those discussions, little baby Shishupal was hearing the name Krishna because somebody said, "Oh, did you hear? Mother Jasoda and Nanda Maharaj, they also had a small child and they named him Krishna." And when Shishupal heard the name Krishna, he screamed. Now, I'm a sannyasi, but I know there's a difference between a whimpering child and a crying child and a screaming child. And he screamed. And he wouldn't stop screaming. It went on for hours. They got a doctor, tried this, tried that, nothing worked. He kept screaming. And it went on all night long, it went on the next day, it went on for a week, it went on for weeks. He wouldn't eat, he wouldn't sleep, he was screaming just from hearing Krishna's name. He was livid, very Krishna conscious, but not a devotee. The anukul was missing. So, Jiva Goswami explains, the essence of bhakti is, whatever you do, body, mind, that's your contemplations, your feelings, it should be direct them towards Krishna in a way that's pleasing to Krishna, anu, shil, in a consistent manner. So, Prabhupada writes in very simple language, it's this type of cultivation, because our absorption is otherwise. We're in Maya, we're Maya. We're forgetful of our relationship with Krishna, and so we're absorbed in something else. Mentioned this verse, Vayam, Dutiyam, Abhiniveshitat syat. Abhinivesh means absorption, similar to this description Jiva Goswami gives. So we were discussing this, and so this is a lesson of bhakti from Rupa Goswami's teachings given by the class teacher today is going to be Queen Kunti, and she's going to explain to us how to have relations with others with Krishna at the center. Now the situation, this is Queen Kunti's prayers. Most of you know this because you've been around a long time. Some of you are a little newer. So the situation is, prior to the Kurukshetra battle, Krishna came from Dwarka, he tried a peace settlement, didn't work, there was a battle. And at the end of the battle, Maharaja Yudhisthira was made and crowned the king. And a funeral was made for everybody that were the dead soldiers on the battlefield, and now it's time for Krishna to go back to Dwarka. And Krishna is about, the bhava, the mood of love, is very similar to Krishna leaving Vrindavan. It's not the same, but there's the anticipation of separation is the ecstasy. And as the gopis came to try to stop the Akrura from taking Krishna from Vrindavan, Kunti came. She's not a gopi, she's mother. But she came, and she had royal privileges. She came right up to the chariot and started making an appeal to Krishna, please don't go. And these two verses we're going to discuss in reverse order, 42 and then 41, toward the end, practically the end of her prayers. And her message is and her mood is, when you leave, then my father's side family that's in Dwarka, they've been feeling great separation, and they'll be greatly relieved when you return. But we'll feel separation. My sons and I will feel separation here in Hastinapur. But if you stay instead of go, then they'll continue to be very sorrowful and we'll be very happy. So I'm torn between these two emotions. The affection that I have for my father's side and the affection that I have for my sons and all the relatives over here. So she's praying, in essence, please remove the material portion and leave only the spiritual portion. And it's possible if Krishna's at the center. That's the message this evening. So, can we have soul-to-soul relationships where Krishna's at the center without material attachment? Well, it's extraordinary. It's transcendental, but it's certainly possible, and that's what our discussion is. Now, if technology works well, there's a recorded set. Just do that. Too many helpers here. Hopefully it's going to work. O Lord of Madhu, as the Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attraction be constantly drawn unto you, without being diverted to anyone else. So are we supposed to be neglectful of family members while we're having our mind go to Krishna like the Ganga flows downward toward the sea? In big letters, bold letters, is Ratim. We know from our Sanskrit exposure, I know a little bit, often our acharyas use this word Rati as interchangeable with Bhava. Strong emotion, transcendental emotion. And Prabhupada has here chosen to translate it as attraction. So let the attraction go to Krishna. Now, this is Vishwanath's paraphrasing of what she's saying. May my mind also carry its affection to you, who are the shelter of all the devotees, just as the Ganga does not consider any obstacles on its course. My mind also should not consider any obstacles that may rise while thinking of you. Nice photograph of the Ganga. And contrast isn't so good. The attitude, let me see what it is. To cut off the tie of all other affections does not mean complete negation of the finer sentiments, like affection for someone else. This is not possible. A living being, whoever he may be, must have this feeling of affection for others, because this is a symptom of life. The symptoms of life, feeling of attraction, etc., cannot be annihilated. Only the objective has to be changed. So that objective, that Krishna Anushilana. So let our affection that we have for our loved ones, family members, etc., those are dear friends and guides and mentors and spiritual masters and all those wonderful personalities. Don't cut off the affection for them, but the objective that Krishna should be pleased. This is this anukulyena. Let the affection that a mother has for her child, or etc., be done in such a way, let that emotion flow in such a way that Krishna will be pleased. It's not cut the emotion, get a dagger and stab it to death and get rid of it. But let it be directed such that Krishna will be pleased. Clear? It's important. So this phrase, oh, no, not working again. Oh, technology is great when it works. What to do?
You want me to hold the mic?
No, it's not the microphone's not the problem, but the image is not advancing.
My guess of Maharaj is that the application is out of focus, so probably if you could get it to focus.
It didn't focus?
Yeah.
Focus?
Focus in the sense like you can swap between multiple applications.
Just
You need to
alt
make it
alt
as-
tab.
Yeah, Alt tab might help.
Make it as present.
Alt tab.
Alt tab? Which tab? Alt tab.
And select.
What?
Alt tab and select whatever you want to show there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's it's highlighted now. It should. You can just place it.
Oh, it's not.
Just click
Yeah, it flickered.
What?
It flickered. Now it's flickered.
These are IT experts. Hand them
With your
the,
permission, can I
they'll fix
try
it
one?
for you, Maharaj.
Sure. Right ahead.
There we go.
Now it's working.
Now it's working.
Shifting. Yeah, it's shifting.
What'd you do?
So I just shift. I did Alt
It went away.
tab. No, it'll come. And then I Alt tab and I
You
change
just
it.
touched it. That touched it too, but it wouldn't.
Okay.
You got the magic touch. Okay, so, in the previous verse, hello? In the previous verse, text 41, because we heard and chanted together from 42, she prays, sever my tie of affection for my kinsmen. Prabhupada, relation of the soul, established in relation with the Supreme Soul, are factual relations. Read it again. Relations of the soul established in relation with the Supreme Soul are factual relations. When Kunti Devi wanted to cut off the family relation, she meant to cut off relations of the skin. The skin relation is the cause of material bondage, but the relation of the soul is the cause of freedom. This relation of the soul can be established by the medium of the relation with the supersoul. So what does it look like? That's a nice phrase. There's a nice fellow, Chinese fellow, and he has a nice friend. They look a little different, but they're both kind of elderly. And they have something in common. They both have spirit soul inside the body. They're different spirit souls, but it's spirit soul to spirit soul. And there's another something they have in common. They both have super soul within the heart, along with the individual soul. And if they're Krishna conscious, the language that we heard is where the objective goes in a Krishna conscious relation is that Krishna should be pleased. So here's a mother towards her child, or the friend towards their friend, or the child towards their parent, or their whatever towards whatever. And if the affection that's very natural and not meant to be cut off, although she's saying sever my ties of affection, what she means, what we are to understand is let the attention go, let the objective of attention go to Krishna. As I'm concerned about my family members that are over there in Dwarka and my children that are over here in Hastinapur, let my affection simply go to you, and then I can properly manage these other emotions that are feeling for my family in Dwarka and my family here in Hastinapur. Nice sentence. This relation of the soul to the soul can be established by the via media of the relation with the super soul. Prabhupada's example. Seeing in the darkness is not seeing, but seeing by the light of the sun means that the sun and everything else, which was unseen in the darkness, that is the way of devotional service. Very simple statement. So, when it's dark, you can't see. And when the sun is visible, you can see the sun and things that the sun illuminates by its light. Simultaneously, both things. But without the sun, you're not going to see things. Similarly, the way of devotional service is to see Krishna within all things, see Krishna within those who we have close affection and relationships with. But if we don't see Krishna, then the attachment is material, and it doesn't serve to elevate us or the other person. We're not going to be good association for the other person. But if we're absorbed in Krishna, then it's a soul-to-soul with Krishna at the center relationship. Now, we're not there yet, but that's our objective. That's what Krishna consciousness looks like. This is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's explanation. Kunti saying, may my mind hold affection, Rati, for you without any obstacle. Uddhva means to flow strongly. The mind should not think of anything else. Your devotees are none different from you, and thus, without affection for them, affection for you cannot take place. It is not possible that this could please you. This I know. Therefore, let my mind have attraction for no one except you and your devotees. Nice, huh? I prayed, that's the previous verse, which we're going to come to shortly. I prayed to cut affectionate bonds with the Pandavas and Yadavas, who are your devotees. But since it is a prayer in front of you, it means cutting only the material affection which arises from bodily identification. It is not cutting off affection relation with you. I want to cut that affection which causes bondage. In Brihat Bhagavatamrita, there's this wonderful scene where Gopa Kumar who is hankering for the association of Madan Gopal, because he received Madan Gopal mantra from his guru, and he just further and further and further and further and further, his affection and attention and objective of life becomes very singularly focused on Madan Gopal. And when he meets Madan Gopal, it's a crescendo of flowing of emotion. And in our Krishna conscious journey, there's Krishna and Krishna's eternal associates. Along the way, there's many, many devotees in many, many different positions. And there are persons that have completely forgotten Krishna in many varieties of ignorance and passion. But those are also Krishna's parts and parcels. So the encouragement of Queen Kunti is to see those souls as part of Krishna in relation to Krishna, and let affection go to them for that reason, not for their behavior or their covered consciousness or their conduct. We are interested to see their conduct change a bit. But that's only going to happen if Krishna consciousness awakens. Okay, so now we'll go back to verse 41. O Lord of the universe, soul of the universe, O personality of the form of the universe, please, therefore, sever my tie of affection for my kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. There's the scene. Kunti is at the chariot of Krishna, and there's no Balaram by his side, but because he wasn't present. But similar emotion of Krishna's leaving Vrindavan. And she's appealing to Krishna in this way. Prabhupada writes, a pure devotee of the Lord is ashamed to ask anything in self-interest from the Lord, but the householders are sometimes obliged to ask favors from the Lord, being bound by the tie of family affection. Srimati Kunti Devi was conscious of this fact, and therefore she prayed to the Lord to cut off the affectionate tie from her own kinsmen, the Pandavas and the Vrishnis. Jiva Goswami comments in Priti Sandarbha, Queen Kunti thinks, if Lord Krishna departs from Hastinapur, that will be inauspicious for the Pandavas. And it strengthens feelings of love for a person when there's feelings of separation from that person. There's so many ways to give this example, but it's part of our Vaishnava teachings of love. Love is strengthened when there's the situation of separation. Prabhupada explains like this. Even when the gopis were with Krishna, they were anticipating, soon we'll be without Krishna. So even when they're with Krishna, they're feeling the anticipation of separation, so it intensifies their feeling of presence of Krishna. feelings of separation are very important in love. Otherwise, you don't have love. It's utilitarian or something like that. So she's not afraid specifically, she's not afraid of separation. But the auspiciousness of Krishna being with the Pandavas will be lost if Krishna goes away. So, anyway, please do not leave the association of either of my two sides, the two sides of my family. It is sometimes experienced that the Lord, out of a special affinity toward a weak devotee, maybe you know somebody somewhere that's a weak devotee. Of course, it's not any of you, but some other people, right? Special affinity toward a weak devotee. He breaks the family affection by force of circumstance arranged by his all-powerful energy. By doing so, he causes the devotee to become completely dependent on him and thus clears the path for his going back to Godhead. Now, this doesn't mean like, separation and divorce. That's not, maybe that. But another practical example of this is Grandfather Bhishma. Grandfather Bhishma became the father when Pandu died, and so the grandchildren were in his care. He had, as Prabhupada says, the grandfather has even more affection for the child than the father. So Grandfather Bhishma had such affection for the Pandavas. And amongst the Pandavas, the dearmost of the Pandavas to Krishna was Arjuna. And Grandfather Bhishma, his name means great vow, because he had a different name before he took this vow. Devavrata. But when he took this vow, I shall not marry and I shall not become king. Whoa, Bhishma. Everyone knew him by Bhishma. And he never broke his vow. Even at the risk of fighting with Lord Parshuram, how'd you like to fight Lord Parshuram? To uphold his vow. Nothing could break his vow. But Krishna tricked him in such a way that he broke his vow. Never would happen by Krishna's cunning. He broke his vow. You know the vow that he broke? Yeah, everyone knows. You don't know. Okay, so in the course of the Kurukshetra battle, Grandfather Bhishma, very mysteriously, took the side of Duryodhana. And it was the wrong thing to do, but he did it for a transcendental reason. And we'll go to the transcendental reason later, but he was on the side of the Kauravas. So one evening, Duryodhana went to Grandfather Bhishma's tent and said, Grandfather Bhishma, you're our general. You live by duty, and it's the duty of the general to lead the army, and you're not fighting to your full capacity, and I know why. Because you have affection for the Pandavas. But you're duty-bound. Duty comes before your affection for the Pandavas. You should defeat them. So Grandfather Bhishma said, all right, I'll take a vow. Tomorrow, I'll kill all 5 Pandavas. You give me these, here's 5 arrows. In the morning, you come to greet me, as you do every morning. Bring these 5 arrows, and with these 5 arrows, I'll defeat the Pandavas, destroy them, and take a vow. Duryodhana was really happy, because he couldn't defeat Arjuna. He had already shown he can't defeat Arjuna. But Grandfather Bhishma can. So he was really happy. But Krishna is omniscient, and in another distant place, Krishna knew that vow that Bhishma had taken and said, Arjuna, there's some service for you. What's that? You remember long ago, Duryodhana gave you a promise. You saved his life from a battle with a Gandharva, and he said, anything that you want, I'm indebted to you. You just ask and it's yours. And you said later, I'll ask. Remember that? So Arjuna, now is the time to ask. Go before he takes rest. Go to Duryodhana's tent and just ask him for 5 arrows. He'll know what you're talking about. So he went, followed Krishna's instructions, and Duryodhana greeted him very respectfully and said, what brings you here? And I've come to seek this pledge that you've given, whatever I want. He said, oh, do you want the kingdom? It's yours. No, I don't want the kingdom. I just want those 5 arrows. So he kept his word. He gave the 5 arrows. So when Duryodhana went to greet Grandfather Bhishma the next morning, and Grandfather Bhishma said, where's the 5 arrows? And he said, oh. Arjuna came last night before he took rest, and he asked for the 5 arrows. And Bhishma said, I, who have never broken my vow, by the cleverness of Krishna, have had my vow broken by him, then I take another vow. And my vow is, by the end of today, before the sun sets, I will kill Arjuna. Unless Krishna breaks his vow. So, Grandfather Bhishma, the Pandavas were feeling terrible. There's a scene, the very first day of the battle. They go before the chair, all 5 of them, palms folded. Grandfather Bhishma, please forgive us. You're a worshipable protector and lovable grandfather. We're going to be engaged in a battle against you. Please forgive us in advance. So as they had affection for him, how much affection did he have for them? They took this terrible vow. He was going to kill Arjuna, the best of the Pandavas, because he knew Krishna would break his vow. And so he fought with such intensity that towards almost the day was finished, and Arjuna's chariot was broken, and Bhishma was firing arrows to kill Arjuna. And prior to that, Krishna's taking arrows in his chest as he's firing arrows at Arjuna, moving here and moving there, and feeling ecstasy. The arrows of Grandfather Bhishma, it's like the biting of a beloved on one's body. This is the description in the Bhagavatam, by the way. So he picks up the chariot wheel of Arjuna, and like a Sudarshan chakra, because he has Sudarshan chakra, he could just use this, didn't need a chariot wheel. Took the chariot wheel and started charging at Grandfather Bhishma to smash him. And Arjuna, as you see, is holding onto Krishna's leg. Don't smash him. It's Grandfather Bhishma. But when Grandfather Bhishma saw them coming, he dropped his bow, he dropped his arrows, he dropped his weapons. Just see, Krishna is such a person that giving protection to his devotee is more important to him than anything else. More important than his word. His own vow is subordinate to his Bhakta Vatsala quality. He has such feelings of love for his devotee. And just at that moment, the sun is setting and the conch blue. The end of the day's battle. So even in intimacy of love between Bhishma and the Pandavas, there can be this seemingly difficult circumstances where it looks like family affection makes one cross the line of propriety. Krishna makes arrangements sometimes to help the devotee become singularly attached to him. So that's how we should think of difficult circumstances. And there's plenty of nice scriptural examples to teach us that. It's not an easy lesson to learn and to live by, but that's how we as Vaishnavas should live. Where we're attached, singularly attached to Krishna and to Krishnas, particularly Krishna's devotees. And that's also Krishna Anushilana. That's attachment to Krishna too. We may get torn between this affection, that affection, this friend and that friend, this family member and that family member, our family and our in-laws, and whatever is the dynamics. Let our attachment go to Krishna. Let the objective of pleasing go to Krishna. And all other dharmas are subordinate to that one. All other emotions are subordinate to that one. All other thoughts, all other actions, everything is subordinate to that one. That's the lesson of Queen Kunti. Okay. Hare Krishna. Had a little bump in the technology program, but we had a rescuer. Any comments or questions? Yes.
In the whole equation, Maharaj, now, then where does the spiritual master?
He is part of the Krishna's entourage. And even more specifically, he is seen, he's seen as Sarva Deva Maya. He's the summation of all the demigods. He is the moving representative of Krishna. In relation to Krishna, we should see him. Yes, Kunti.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So, how to meditate on Krishna?
How to meditate on Krishna?
On the mood what Bhishma has meditated.
What Bhishma has?
Meditated on.
I just want to know, if I want to meditate on Krishna as Bhishma meditated.
Well, don't try to do that.
Not exactly the same standard of Bhishma, but the same mood.
His rasa, Krishna is dasya. Krishna is the master, I am the servant of the master. Now, he was a very advanced devotee. And because he was this is the detail. There's secondary rasas. You familiar with that? Primary and secondary rasas? There's 5 primary rasas. Neutrality, servitorship, friendship, like Arjuna and Krishna, parental affection, like Mother Yasoda, conjugal affection. So there's 5 primary rasas. And then there's 7 secondary rasas. And the secondary rasas seem to cover the primary rasa, but they simply enrich the flavor and diversity and happiness of the primary rasa. Although the primary rasa may seem to be obscured or overwhelmed by this rise and crescendo of a secondary rasa. So, in service to Krishna, Bhishma being the dasya rasa, he wanted to reciprocate with Krishna's chivalrous rasa. That's one of the 7. Chivalry, combat, competition, challenge. So, he took the opposite side of the Pandavas. So he could be opposite Krishna and be in opposition to Krishna and Krishna's devotees. So his heart wasn't really into it, but he was reciprocating with Krishna. So this exchange with Duryodhana enhanced that secondary rasa of chivalry. So he's now the servant, the dasya, the dasa of Krishna, firing arrows that hits the body of Krishna and showing, arrow marks in Krishna's body. Arjuna feels terrible. Those arrows were intended for me and Krishna's taking the arrows instead. Horrible. Horrible. And Krishna's thinking, So, that's very high. We don't imitate. But the primary mood is dasya, is the mood of the servant. Our friend here, could you sit down? Could you sit down? Just sit down.
Yeah.
Can you sit down? Can you sit down? Yes, you can. Okay. A little help, and you can do it. So, where you or we should focus is simply being the servant. Whatever it is Krishna wants, let me try. I've prayed to Krishna for the strength and the ability and everything needed to do what Krishna wants. That's how we can follow Bhishma. He's the master, I'm the servant, whatever he wants. It's yes. Even before he asks it, it's yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful class. My question is, as per the scriptures, we understand that there's an expectation of the Vanaprastha ashram where after a certain age, you tend to, or you should practically reduce your responsibilities from the family life, and that's how you reduce your affection. And in the absence of any structured Vanaprastha ashram yet available in our society, is there any practical means that is suggested?
Yeah, hearing and chanting. Increase your hearing and chanting. And and another standard one is visiting places of pilgrimage. And the purpose of the pilgrimage place is not just a place but sadhusanga, so increasing sadhusanga. Those are all things, notice, what they hope to have in common is increasing attachment to Krishna. That awakens detachment from other than Krishna. Just like this, reading Queen Kunti's prayers. She's way up there. And she's praying, so what to speak of ourselves? So we follow her. And not imitate, but try to understand, through the help of our great acharyas, what's her message. So those are things that can help us without the formality of a structure of well-structured Vanaprastha ashram. The other three ashrams are not so well defined either. They're more defined than the Vanaprastha ashram, but Brahmacharya ashram is like practically an extinct species. And today, there's exceptions, but it's not well defined, not well formed, not a good support structure. And a Grihastha community, there's something, but there's oceans of room for improvement, structure-wise, and standards-wise, and so many things. So the principles that a Vanaprastha can engage in without the structure, that's of value. That'll help.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Did Arjuna always think of his beloved friend every moment, even when he got married and when he was...
When you're attached to something or someone, you think of them. It's not, you don't have to go to school, learn how to think of them. It just happens naturally. Yeah. And then there's something that reminds you of that someone that you're attached to, and your thoughts flow to that someone. Yes?
Yes, Maharaj.
Okay.
So this picture. So Arjuna's already surrendered, understanding Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but yet here he's trying to stop Krishna from engaging in
he sure
activity.
is. Look at that.
So how do we understand that?
It's love.
It's love, yeah.
It's love. Because he knows Krishna loves Grandfather Bhishma, because Grandfather Bhishma loves Krishna. So you're in this mood, but let me check your mood, because you love Grandfather Bhishma, as do we all. So, you stopped him from killing me, but, don't kill him. So, and Krishna doesn't want to kill him, so it's just it's a loving gesture.
Yeah.
From your question, like when Krishna was speaking to Rukmini, but you're not a fit person to be your husband, you should divorce me. You should find a qualified person to be your husband, and you're way up here and I'm way down there, and
Right.
really it's the best thing, let's part ways.
Yeah.
Sometimes in Grihastashram, not sometimes, all the time, in Grihastashram we have conflicting situations.
No.
Between the choices of, for example, a service.
Then why get married? You're discouraging all these young men that never want to get married. There is no conflict in marriage, conflicting situation.
Conflict arises if someone says back, right? So.
Be a little encouraging. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry about it. So, how do we prioritize?
I'm just teasing.
How do we prioritize? For example, I have to attend my kids' recital versus seva, for example.
Okay.
Sometimes I might take the pursuit of escaping my family responsibilities in the guise of doing some service. So I could say that, hey, Krishna consciousness is more important for me, but it could be an escaping.
The mind is tricky, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
And you just monitor the mind. Mind the mind. Right? The first thing, the art of mindfulness, remember that one?
Yes.
At your home?
Yeah.
Mind the mind. So we're prone to material affinity, asat Krishna. And so even when we're doing bhakti, we should be alert to the fact that the mind, because we follow the mind goes to asat. And the mind is very tricky. The mind is not our best friend. The mind needs to be controlled, and the way the mind is controlled is through bhakti. And that's this operative principle is Krishna should be pleased. So we may not know what is pleasing to Krishna, but we know that our mind is tricky and wants to go somewhere else. So don't follow the mind. But take that, I like this definition, Jiva Goswami's. The body, the contemplations, and the emotions, and direct them to Krishna. Favorably. Consistently. That's bhakti. So, it's not an easy question to answer, how do I know? But it is an easy question to answer, or a statement to make that the mind is tricky, and we should not trust the mind. So you do a pause, you step back, and you enter this contemplation space. And if you practice it, it becomes second nature. It happens very quickly. What would be pleasing to Krishna? And I want to weed out the selfishness and the trickiness and deception, self-deception and other deception. I just want one thing. You just keep practicing, you cultivate that. That's bhakti, cultivation of that. And then you're exercising your bhakti muscle. And pretty strong, you'll have a strong bhakti muscle. And then you can do things that you couldn't do before you started the bhakti muscle exercise. For Krishna is to be pleased. That's the cultivation of bhakti. And then there'll be new challenges and new challenges and new challenges. But that's the entitlement for you did your kindergarten. To get to elementary school, to get to middle school. You have more and more challenges. It doesn't stop. It's lovely. It's not intimidating, it's lovely. It's the a life of dedication of the body, the contemplations of the mind, and where our emotions go, and with deep absorption in Krishna should be pleased. That's our life. And the mind will still keep being tricky. Won't stop. You just stay determined. Stay on track. And gradually purification, and the light prevails and the darkness subsides. Okay. Anything back there? Yes.
One of the things Srila Prabhupada has always told that if you want to accelerate your bhakti, then you have to read the prayers of great souls like Kunti, Maharani, and Vishnu Dev and all. So I was thinking that when we read those prayers of Kunti Maharani, so we cannot actually get into that mood, because she asks for more and more misery than so that Krishna remains with us. So when we read that, what kind of mood that we should carry?
We try to understand. We try to appreciate her exaltedness and become a follower of her exaltedness. It's not per se, she's appealing for misery. She's appealing for whatever it is that brings me closer to you. And when we have difficulty, you come. So I want that. And if the price is some difficulty, that's no difficulty. The difficulty is disconnect. So try to understand, from our position, what's the mood of Queen Kunti. It's expressed differently by Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, but when Narada Muni goes to visit the Pandavas, they're having a conference, and what should be the next message? Next difficult situation, so Krishna will come. Because whenever there's a difficult situation, Krishna comes. So what's the best difficult situation? Next one. Planning a difficult situation. Because they want Krishna. And that it works. Krishna comes every time. For them. Someone? Yes, Mataji.
Maharaj, how do I differentiate faith versus sentiment for my devotion?
Scripture. And the yardstick or the lens is Scripture. No. Faith is not minus sentiment. There's sentiment that goes with faith. But properly directed faith is according to Scripture. And sentiment is unguided by Scripture. Nothing wrong with sentiment. Feelings. Feelings are natural, just like we're hearing. Feelings are natural. But they should be guided by Scripture. So what does Scripture say about where our feelings should go? They should go to Krishna. That was the class this afternoon, by the way. Why we should study Scripture. Because if we're not guided by Scripture, you'll be misguided. Good intention. People that are sentimental, we don't blame them for bad intention. They're just misguided. And we can also be misguided if we aren't sufficiently grounded in the message of Scripture. Guru Sadhu Shastra, that's our authority structure. And of the three Shastras, superlative, because Guru and Sadhu follows the Shastra. That's what determines their qualification, Shastra. Okay. If you have a Hare Krishna question. Yeah.
Like in our family, like extended family, not everyone is devotee, but few are devotees and who are not. And generally it's said like if they are not devotee, like better you give association, but don't take association. But how do we really manage that, or can you tell us?
How can I tell you how to do it, huh? We have a managing family relations seminar. I don't want to teach that one. But your question easily connects with his question. It has so much to do with purity, more than it has purity along with intention. So, where there's internal cultivation, I use this phrase, internal cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Externally, I can behave in family situations, extended family situations, where I'm not compromising my Krishna consciousness. There's some principles I'm just not going to cross over. The eating, and those kinds of things, and the daily chanting. Just some boundaries I'm just not going to cross. Then externally, I can be just as normal as pakoras and chapatis, or instead of pizza and pasta. So something that they recognize, oh, this family member they have such nice, so I go out of my way. I mean, for the pleasure of Krishna, not by some other motivation, to please Krishna, so the family members will be contented. Oh, whatever this family member is up to, it's good. They're happy. Their mood is very kind. They're always anticipating situations that need some service and just consistently doing that. I don't know what they're up to, but what they're up to is good. And it's not just to get their mind to move, but on the higher stages for pleasing Krishna, because then they become favorable toward Krishna, which is beneficial for them. So it's nice service. It's Krishna conscious service. Now, one can do the same thing in a manipulative consciousness, and it's not the same, it doesn't have the same purity of force. So it comes down to purity and intention. But good intention isn't good enough. Purity is required. There's the seminar. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.